can start now. We've started. We're started.
Are we starting now?
Podcast is on. We're rolling.
So I feel like I should be distracted by something like Angie.
Yeah, Angie usually takes the lead and makes sure.
Yeah, do I do my nails? Do I check my phone? Do I see if Brooke needs me or what?
Sure.
Those are
You do all those things
huge.
because I'm not doing any of them.
Those are either huge shoes or huge bra cups to fill.
That's right.
With
Both.
Angie.
Yeah.
I got to fill Angie's bra cups.
Entered. Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of work. Thanks for the bourbon.
You're
Cheers.
welcome, man.
This is dudes. That's all it is tonight. No chicks. Mychal Schulz.
Although I got to tell you, Dudes in the Closet probably doesn't have the same ring to the listening audience as you and Angie in the closet.
Probably not.
Just saying. So we're not in the. Just to be clear, we're not in the closet here.
We're not in the closet. We're
out
It'd
in
be
the-
too awkward for us to be in the closet.
We're out in the open. Not that we have anything to be out in the open about. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But suddenly I feel like I'm in a Seinfeld episode that I need to
Yeah.
explain myself.
Don't worry about it.
So perhaps I should just shut up now.
Yeah, not here. You don't need to
Okay.
explain yourself. It's the week of Christmas. It's the week of Christmas. We have set a world record for us, and that's we, as in Ange, has got everything done.
All your shopping?
All the I think we got to pick up a few knickknacks for like her parents or something by Wednesday. So
See,
it's considered done. I mean, I'm talking
no,
wrapped.
You're not done. No,
I'm talking
you're not
wrapped.
Done. No, you're not done because you know what? On those years, those really rare years that I feel like I'm way ahead of the curve, and I do all my Cyber Monday shopping, and I do all my local
Right.
small business shopping, and I'm like, oh, all I have are knickknacks. I'm done. And then Christmas Eve, I'm scrounging for the knickknacks because, like, I became so complacent about being done, but I wasn't done. It's like the guy who is running for the touchdown and starts celebrating at the 5-yard line, only to have the ball knocked away by the defensive player hustling down the field. That's what you got to warrant.
That guy didn't have Ange running beside him, yelling at him to stay focused. You're not there yet. I'm celebrating. She's not. She's in my ear still. Like, let's get this done now. Can't wait till Wednesday. So it'll probably be done tomorrow.
Yeah, so you're not done.
That's why we're not in the closet, because there's so many gifts in there wrapped and stacked up for these kids.
See,
The worst part about getting done early or doing the shopping early is that the kids decide they want something different. You know, we give them all a budget. They're so old. And we let them almost...
Oh, really? Is that how you do it?
Yeah, so we give our kids a budget, the girls especially, because it'll drive you nuts trying to get them stuff. We let them get it. They can pick it out. They can get... It used to be that they would just pick it out with Angie and she would go get it, and they wouldn't really know what they're getting. You know what I mean? They pick a bunch of stuff. Now it's just like, get it online this year especially. It was like, get your stuff and have it shipped here. Load up the Amazon cart, whatever. We'll pick from it. And then we wrap it. But then with Nate, we get all his done in like 3 days after it's done. He's like, man, I really want this. I really want this. This would be awesome to have for Christmas. I'm like, dude, your budget's shot. Like, you're done.
Because he's a gamer.
Right.
And gamers, much like kids that age who have attention spans of 3.7 seconds,
Yeah, like me.
you know, they play a game. Gamers play a game. They get to the 132nd level in 27 hours, and then they're on to the next thing.
This is true. And they're always being sold stuff. It's amazing online.
Oh my God, yes.
They're constantly watching YouTube videos and being sold all this new stuff that just, but he'll be happy with whatever he gets.
See, in my household, I have two daughters, 20 and 22, and I want a list. And I used to, and I still to a certain extent do, but I used to like have a list. I'll get the things or pick things from the list. But most of my gifts used to be like what I thought they wanted, or I just personalize and make it special.
Right.
And you know, you learn the hard way. That's not always the best with teen girls. So the percentage of what I freelance with versus what they specifically put on their list has shifted over the years. So now my freelancing is like in the 5% range. And,
Oh gosh.
I go with their list.
Right.
And that's their mother in them, which is fine because I know that's what they want.
Yeah.
As opposed to the freelance thing, it's like, all right, you got a 50-50 shot, 40-60 shot that they want.
Yeah, 40-60 maybe.
But I know I have to get on them. I started Thanksgiving to give me a list.
Right.
And it gets irritating because, like, should I have to beg you to give me a list of things that you want me to buy you? I shouldn't have to beg. And every year I end up reminding him like 7 times. But anyway, so
what are you going to do?
I got the list eventually, and I'm probably 95% done. But so I'm not all done. I have knickknacks. I have stocking stuffers.
Probably 98 to 99% done. Yeah. Here's the thing.
So I'll see you on Thursday night.
Yeah, I'll run into you. Maybe we just go together.
Just go to get those knickknacks and stocking stuffers.
Well, I have 2 cars out. The thing that for me that's weird is like you give them a budget, and Maddie, she shops and she gets like she has tons of boxes to open, tons, like 3 times the rest of everybody. Brooke is the opposite. She wanted a Chromebook and something else, so she's got like 3 things to open.
Okay, so that brings up an interesting...
And I told her that. I said, that's all you're going to open. She's like, I know. I was like, you're old enough to understand this. So kids, if you're under the age of 18 and you believe in Santa, he's real, but we're helping him out.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's actually
God, I hope
interesting.
There's no kids listen to this.
Because I don't give a budget. Always kind of hoping my kids have enough self-awareness to be reasonable. Which, sometimes happens, sometimes not. But my daughters count. They're counters.
Okay. Yeah.
And their mom and I...
Competitive counters?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And their mom and I know this. And for your listeners who don't know me, long time divorce, but we get along. We worked hard to get along in the best interest of raising the kids. But we know this about our girls, and we remind each other of this, that, if I get 10 things for daughter 1, come hell or high water, I better get 10 things for daughter 2. And it's really the opposite. Daughter 1, who, I joke, daughter 1 could make a competitive exercise over at mass going and getting a host. She'll make that a competitive exercise. Like, I got my host first.
Really?
I got to the priest first. I beat you.
She's competitive.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So we'll count. So if it's, 10-10, and there's levels to that, because it's not just 10-10. It's like Price is Right. In their own head, they're thinking, okay, my 10 probably add up to $400. So I can't just have filler on the second 10, because the second 10, if it only adds up to $140, oh yeah, I'll hear about it.
So they're good at keeping score.
Oh my God, perfect. Yes,
so, yeah, they're really good at keeping.
They're competitive counters. They keep score.
So it's just not count; they keep score. Like they're detailed on this.
Right. So
that's why there's a budget and there's an explanation. Whatever you pick out.
So this year, daughter 1 gave me a list. I'm like, great, thank you. And there was one high ticket item on it, a computer. She wanted a laptop computer. I'm like, great, you need one. That's fine. And daughter 2, who is taking a gap year in college, gave me 5 links to things she wanted. But after that, she's like, you know what? I really don't need anything else. Why don't you just make a donation in my name to an arts program for local, because he's kind of artistic, to a local, arts program for underprivileged kids. And this is my own fault. I'm like, first of all, I feel like that's a trap. On the one hand, I'm
really?
that's
trap.
great.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you for thinking that way. I don't need anything. Make a donation in my name for whatever else you would have spent on me.
It feels like a very sophisticated trap.
But in the second, yeah, which is terrible of me to think that, but I'm thinking, trap? Because what if I do that? But then I'm thinking, okay, what did I add up daughter number 1? How much did I spend? How much did I spend on daughter number 2 who gave me the 5 things? Do I make $1 for $1 to make it even so I can, if ever asked?
Well, my
in case it's a trap, I can say I spent the same on both of you.
Why don't you do this so you can't be trapped? You take the difference in the amount of money and you give it to her, and she can use it how she chooses. That way she can I want you to choose
where it goes.
I want with you even to choose the art, whatever.
What a great
donate
idea.
It to, because I want us to have that. And if you choose to buy a coat with it, that's fine too.
What a great idea.
There you go. See, we got to talk, or else we won't make it.
No, that is a fantastic idea.
I'm telling you.
And I have to tell you, all right, I'm going to brag a little bit for daughter number 2, who, again, taking a gap year. She's like, I really don't need much, which was a proud parent moment.
Yes.
Which is like, man, okay. Good for you, because you could have just filled the list and I would have filled it with stuff.
Right.
But you're like, I'm good.
Daughter number 2, that's odd, because in our household, it's daughter number 1 that's really...
Thinks that way?
Ever since she's got a job and started making her own money, she doesn't ask for money. Like, every once in a while, she's at college, and she'll say, hey, Dad, I'm so low on money. I just paid rent, because she wants to be independent, right? And she'll say, I need to get shampoo and conditioner and some makeup. And I'm like, Maddie, we're your parents. I tell you all that every time you do this stuff, I'll send you money for it. And she's like, I don't want to, I know I don't want to bother you for it. I work and I can pay for my stuff. I don't want to stress you out. I'm like, you're not. I can pay for your makeup and your hair products, the essentials, the needs, the necessities. Now, if you're going out and you want me to buy your alcohol or your, ridiculous things, but that's the thing. She's the one that has always, she never asked me for gas. She has her own car. So when she comes in, I always try to slide her cash when she leaves here so she has some gas. Maybe she won't ask me.
Yeah.
It's weird. And she gets on me. She says, you need to do this so Brooke understands and Kaylee understands how to use money now that they're getting jobs. You need to not let them give them money. You need to make them spend their money on the things that matter so that they understand how hard it is. So it makes me proud. But then it's a little bit, you're going away too quick, You're pulling away too fast.
I am with you, because daughter 1, again, who graduated, she's the same way. Won't ask me for much, so that when she does ask, I am so willing to say, yeah, Venmo me. Oh, absolutely. And I have to tell you, I got the funniest Venmo just tonight, because they flew from Chicago to here for the Christmas holidays. So I got a Venmo request from daughter number 1, who, again, just graduated from college, has a job. And the Venmo request was, and I'm paraphrasing, because your second daughter doesn't know how to use a United app, and I had to pay for her checked luggage.
Oh, my gosh.
So I'm like, okay, I have to pay that Venmo for daughter 2, doesn't have a job, and didn't know how to use the United Airlines app in O'Hare Airport, and so I'll pay her luggage fee.
That's
pretty funny. But that's if you trust your child to have that kind of judgment about money and know that they're good with it, it's so easy to send them money for necessities, or if they need it. And it makes you want to go the other way, which is, can I give you more?
Absolutely.
Do you don't hesitate to ask, versus the one who hasn't learned that, and it's like, what do you need that for? And you're questioning every penny you give them as to whether they really need it or not.
Isn't that funny? That's how nature is, though, in life. Like, we've talked about that before. Me and Angie were talking about last night, because we did a relationship podcast last night. I don't know if we talked about it on the podcast, but afterwards, it was like we were talking about intimacy, we were talking about sex, we're talking about. It's like you can't spend too much time together, and you can't be too needy. Because if you're too needy, it kind of like that. If you're needy, it makes you want to question everything, and like not necessarily question that there's something wrong, but it's just like it kind of is a turnoff more than if you're independent. You're more willing, or if you let people be who they are and let them go, in a way, things tend to go your way a little bit more. If you're not overbearing, I guess you could say,
Yeah,
right?
I agree with that. And I haven't listened to that podcast, but
We just posted it last night late, so it's just went up. But it's a bunch of questions we're answering, and I don't know if we got into that on it, but it's funny how your mind and you when somebody you can see their genuine intention is selflessness. You want to give more to them of whatever it is, and with my oldest daughter, that's it. It's like I wish I could,
do more.
make life easier on her, do more for her,
Yep.
And then that parental instinct with the other ones that might not be that maturity level yet. It's like it kicks in to be harder on them, to teach them a little bit of a lesson, to say, hey, you've got to learn that you can't. You're not always going to get bailed out, and we've all had to learn that, I think.
So let me ask you this. I mean, you're a parent. I'm a parent. Many of your listeners are parents. Did you read any books on being a good parent, how to be a good parent, how to parent daughters? You have a son. I don't have a son, but how to parent. Did you read articles or books about how to do it? How to do it well? How to do the right thing? Or was it, I hate to say instinct, because instinct underestimates the amount of what you've learned from your own experience growing up with your parents or parents, and seeing how your friends interacted with and were raised by parents, and that just formed a body of experience that you tapped into in order to parent. Which one was it?
I didn't read. The funny thing is my uncle, and I still sometimes feel bad because I still have the book and I'll find it. When I had my second daughter, my uncle, who has 2 daughters and a son, he's a missionary in Africa. I spent a summer with him in Africa. But
I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Where?
Cote d'Ivoire, the Ivory Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So many amazing stories, so many amazing experiences. Phenomenal. It was a phenomenal summer. Yeah, it was incredible. Me and my brother.
We're going to talk about that sometime. I want to dive deep into that.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right.
Maybe next week or the week after, if we'll do this again soon, of course. But he gave me a book, and it was Raising Daughters, and he's a pastor.
I had the same book,
and I read maybe 2 chapters, and I'm just not a reader. I'll read something if it just captivates me. Like if it sucks me in, it's almost like it's ridiculous. Like I'm obsessed. Now today, right now I listen to books constantly. But I challenged myself about a month and a half ago to read 10 pages a day. And I probably read 10 pages 3 to 4 days a week. Well, no, when I start reading 10 pages, it ends up being 20. But I read so much at work. Nothing like you're a lawyer, but I read all day long. So for me to want to read pleasure, I just want to fall asleep as soon as I start reading. So, but to answer your question, I would have to say that all of my parental, I was always very worried and interested in doing it the right way, and I always looked back at my parents because they've been together forever. They still are. Not that that means you're a good or bad parent, but I got to look at that model since I'm with somebody and I've been with her for so. Kind of went off how they did things, but then I didn't do it exactly the same way. So there's a lot of instinct, and it's probably a lot of things wrong. There's days I think, man, I wish I would have read that book. I, honest to God, say to myself, I wish I would have prayed more, and I wish I would have read that book. I don't know if that book would have done anything for it, but at least I could say I read it. And I don't know if my daughters would think that about me, like he could have done a whole lot better. But as a parent, you kind of always think, gosh, I could have done this better. I could have been, you know what I mean?
So I was recently, within the past week, telling somebody, I got a lot of books, and you start with what to expect when you're expecting.
Well, yeah,
That's
Ange
like
did that whole thing.
That's the quintessential.
Right, yeah.
You get that as a couple, and
Right.
the wife reads it front to back and takes
Yes.
notes and highlights and underlines, and there's notes written in the margin. And the husband's like, "Can I get the cliff notes?"
That's exactly what it was.
Exactly. That
You
was,
read that, right? So
Right.
we're
That-
good.
Fill me in on the highlights, honey. And then I got other books, when I still have them in my bookcase, for goodness sake, that I never read. Or I read like the description of it, maybe the foreword or something. But beyond that, instinct, experience, I did the absolute best. But at some point, you have to, and I think you're kind of there with Maddie, your older one.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you just have to let go.
Right.
And look, there's a certain amount of hope, whim, and a prayer that what you were trying to instill in them, what you were trying to guide them to be, I hate to say form, because that's,
Right.
to me, that's too intrusive.
Sure.
But the path that you were trying to gently influence them to get on, which
Right.
is to be a good person,
Right.
you hope it takes.
You
There's
hope
a
it
certain
takes.
amount of hope, whim, and a prayer. You hope it takes.
Yes. I
And
feel like it is taking. It's just you've got to be patient with,
well,
that
and
it doesn't all happen at once.
it starts early. And this is another way I've described it to people. I wasn't a helicopter dad,
Right.
and I know the mother of my kids was not a helicopter mom, because we talked about it. And
Nor are we.
of,
Right.
we were of the opinion that your kids have to sometimes fail, because it's only through failure that you learn
Right.
and rise from the ashes. Your kids sometimes have to fall and scrape their knees. And you can be there. You can't prevent them from falling and scraping their knees. You might wipe the blood from their knees.
Right.
But don't be such a helicopter or interventionist parent that you're like, oh, they're going to fall and scrape their knees. Let me stop you from falling.
Right.
No. Kids have to fail. Kids have to fall and scrape their knees, and you hope that they learn the lessons to be learned from that, so that they grow up to be, again, more self-sufficient,
A productive citizen.
productive citizen,
Right.
thinking and not believing that, oh, if all else fails, I actually don't have to work hard or make
Right.
good decisions because I'll
Right.
be bailed out.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And
true.
that's such a fine line. I always envision it in my head, and I describe it to people.
It's a very fine
Is
line.
is like, all right, I'm hovering over as I'm watching my child fail. I'm hovering over watching my child fall to her knees to scrape them, and my instinct is to reach out and prevent it from happening.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm not, because I'm like, I'm going to make sure nobody interferes too much with this process, because they need to scrape their knees to fail.
Have to.
And hopefully the consequences won't be too bad. I'll always be there for the consequences. But maybe kind of interventionist in the sense that I'm going to try to prevent the consequences from being too bad.
Right.
That's how lessons are learned. Anyway,
They have been for me. They still are.
Parenting 101 right there.
Parenting 101. Let them fail. I agree. You have to. That's one thing for me growing up is I never wanted to mess anything up or fail. And so
You were the youngest, weren't you?
I was the oldest.
Okay, how did I get that you were the youngest?
I was the oldest of four.
I knew you
I
had,
have
I knew you
two
had three
brothers and a
siblings.
sister. And my sister's 13 years younger than me, something like that. But anyway, yeah, I'm the oldest. And my dad always said that about me. He's like, Jeff will try anything. He doesn't care to fail. I didn't really care to fail at sports. Like, I went and I played hockey. Nobody was playing hockey. I tried about anything. I was a skateboarder. I would try anything and didn't care. I played baseball. My senior year, I hadn't played before. I went out, I made the team, and I wasn't great, but I went out there and I wasn't scared to make mistakes. But in other areas of my life, whether it be when I first started working or in my relationships, there's a problem with trying to be perfect because you make excuses for your behavior when you shouldn't. You should just own up to it. You know what I mean? And I had a problem with that. And you don't learn. You don't get better because you're too busy trying to cover up what you screwed up and lie to yourself that you don't learn the lesson. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And when I was in my 20s, I had the worst problem with that.
Because if you try to be perfect, guess what? Nobody's perfect. And the more you try to be perfect, and that's not a bad goal to have.
Right.
But you'll never achieve it. But if you try to be perfect and believe you should be perfect, then that just sets you up to excuse why you're not.
It's true, and that's what I did a lot of cases.
That's what it sounds like.
And that's what I think a lot of people have that same issue, especially when you're young. I see it in my daughters sometimes that they're so one-sided. And you may see this, whether it be political views, whether it be religious views, whether it be their opinions are so harsh to one side and that they won't accept anybody with an opposing opinion sometimes. And I'm at my age, no, but I was like that, all right? And now I just try to tell them, you're making yourself dumber. You need friends that have opposing views. You need to have conversations. You need to empathize. You need to try to see it from every angle.
Get out of your silo.
So that you can be smarter, so that you can be more educated, so that you can contribute to the lives around you more.
Man, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And then I'm talking from a 45-year-old who's the same. So it's like this evolution. You hope they have that same evolution, just quicker.
Right. You want them at, their late teens, early 20s. You want them to have the critical thinking and perspective and life experiences you have at 45. And it's sometimes hard as a parent,
right,
to realize, you know what? They don't. Because I have the same experience, and I know we don't get political in the closet, but I have two daughters that they have strong views.
I'm with you on that.
And when I bring up a counter view or one, I don't call it a counter view, but it's I'll call it a softened, more moderate view than what they have. They're so quick to paint me as some sort of extremist to the other end of the political spectrum. Right. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
You can't even
stop.
Yeah. You can't even think that way, or else you're put on that side of the fence.
And I'll give one example, again, not going too deep into political, but climate change. I have one daughter who believes that is the number one existential issue that we are facing. I'm like, okay, I got it. But I suggested to her that maybe what we ought to be doing is devoting more resources without denying that there's change going on. Maybe we as a society ought to be devoting more resources to adapting to climate change as opposed to preventing it from happening in the first place. And she immediately went off on a rampage against me like I am some sort of climate change denier and I am some sort of conservative who wants to embrace fossil fuels. I'm like, no, wait a second. You understand there's a reason we don't have dinosaurs, right? And the reason we don't have dinosaurs anymore is because there was climate change. And that climate change was driven by the latest scientific theory is there was a big meteor that hit the Earth.
Right.
Big cloud of dust that cooled off the planet such that dinosaurs... And that had nothing to do with the burning of fossil fuels. I mean, that was literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years
Probably
before
millions of years, yeah.
we had the first combustible engine
Right.
in England in the 1700s. You understand that, right? Didn't want to hear that. Didn't want to hear that.
Well,
It's like,
she don't.
come on, man.
She don't want to hear it, but you got to understand. This is the day of Twitter where they're wanting so badly to go up against the climate change denier. That's what their whole
But they're in their,
stature's
because
for.
they're in their silo.
They're in their silo.
And
It's fun. It's fun to be part of a
And
tribe.
anybody who doesn't agree with you is
Right.
automatically on the other side.
Right.
It's like, no, I'm on the same side as you. Just asking you to look at it a little bit differently. Looking at it from
have
a
to.
slightly different perspective here.
It doesn't mean you're not saying there still isn't a problem.
And I'm not saying you're necessarily wrong.
Right. Right.
But maybe the problem is a little bit more nuanced, which means that the solution is a little bit more nuanced
Right. That
than
makes
what you
complete
are
sense.
thinking in your head. Yeah, trying to do that with a 20-year-old?
Well, I
And
mean,
you know
I've come to I've just kind of backed out. You know, I'll try to challenge but not where I get emotionally involved ever. It's just, I try to couch it the right way to try to get them to think. And my exercise in the whole thing is almost not even to be combative or to disagree with them because, you know, like you said, I may totally agree with them, but it's like I almost want to exercise their brain a little bit and say, hey, have you looked at it this way? You know, and they just immediately shut you off because you've suggested them looking at something from another angle, which shows me complete lack of confidence in their viewpoints. It's like I always said, once I hit, like, because religion is the same way with me. I grew up very religious, very dogmatic, this is the way it is. And then one day I realized that that the way I believed was wrong. I don't mean that I don't believe in the Christian values and that I don't believe in Christ. I mean the way I looked at religion was wrong. Because I was brought up, if you have doubt, you have no faith. If you have these thoughts, you have no faith. And then one day I go, why in the world is the omnipotent God, why would he be threatened or worried about me saying, you sure that there's a whale that swallowed up a man and spit him out? See, that's, for me to ask that question though in Sunday school was a problem, and there might be something wrong with Jeff, and why would he be, and then your parents are looked at as not good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they failed.
They failed because why is he questioning anything? And to me,
Oh my God.
Please question. Question. God's bigger than your questions, and he will answer them, and you will be fine. It just might be a different answer than you're looking for.
Okay, yeah, there's a whole lot to unpack there. But
Sorry.
Wow.
I easily get pulled down the religious thing because it's such a huge part of my existence.
well, here
And we don't have to go way down that route
Well,
tonight, but
no, two things I'll say in response to that. Number one, I think you may have known this, but I taught at West Virginia State for a long time.
right.
And I taught social sciences and history. And in my time, this is anecdotal, it's not statistical, but in my time teaching there, the one thing that I saw decline steadily over the time that I was teaching was critical thinking. And you may ask, how can you have critical thinking in history? Because I made him write a research paper.
Right.
And I made him have a thesis. And by having a thesis, it means you're making a statement of opinion.
Got it.
Whatever your opinion is, and I would tell them, I don't care what your opinion is. You are not going to be graded on your opinion or on whether I agree or disagree with your opinion. What you will be graded on is when you come up with your thesis, is build the case to support it, which means critical thinking. I've made a statement which is, FDR and his New Deal was the worst possible thing to happen to a democracy. FDR and the New Deal was the best possible thing to happen
And now
to
you
a
have to
democracy.
support that statement.
I don't care if you're right or wrong.
Right.
I care about how you build the case by going and doing the research
Right.
to support your thesis, and that involves critical thinking. And I saw such an incredible decline in critical thinking. that I think it's kind of borne out in society today. Where you can have an opinion, but whether or not you have evidence to support the opinion, or you can use logic or reason to support the opinion, matters not. The complete lack of critical thinking, and I hate that. I mean, I rebel against that. The second thought I have to what you say is, the idea that you can't question faith. I mean, look, you may have some fundamental believers and you're listening, but
I don't know.
At the end of the day, I do not believe, and I have actually read essays on trying to prove the existence of God by diving deep into molecular science and genetic science.
Wow.
I've
That's interesting.
But having read that research, I truly believe that there is no possible way to scientifically prove through science the existence of God. That at the end of the day, no matter how deep down that rabbit hole you dive, there's a leap of faith.
You must have a leap of yes.
And I do believe that the leap of faith is a gift. And sometimes, you know what? If you doubt, to me, that is the most natural thing.
Sure.
Because we're human.
Right. It's where do you go, though, when you have that doubt?
And,
I mean...
And I both admire and I am critical of. At the same time, I admit this. I both admire and am critical of those who just have unquestioned belief. Because in my mind, it's like your world must be so simple.
It is simple. I lived it. It's very simple because you get to block out the questions.
Real world. The real world.
No,
is
I know
not
that there's
simple.
critical thinking, and that's my problem with tribes. We said that about whether you be in the silo of environmental, what you're talking about with your daughter, whether you be on that side of things and you're in this tribe, this group of people. I feel like when I look at the church, it's you fit into this mold. And it's not every church, and it's not all churches, and I know they've evolved, and there's different, but still, if you go to a church, usually, around here anyway, it's going to be a very similar crowd, and you're going to fit that mold, and you're going to start to do those things, you're going to start to fall into the patterns, because that's what you do when you get in a tribe. You stop questioning everything because you want to be a part of the tribe. And that can be very dangerous. I think.
It can be dangerous because it's like putting on
But it's extremely comfortable.
It's like putting on your favorite, most comfortable pair of jeans and your favorite, warmest, most comfortable sweater. You put those on because they're your most favorite, your warmest, and your most comfortable. And if you find other people who wear the same jeans and the same sweater, you're going to want to hang out with them because it's comfortable and it's easy.
It's fun.
And,
yeah,
guess what? That's the same basic human impulse behind segregation.
Right.
The impulse for people is to hang out with those who are most like you. The most uncomfortable is to hang out with or listen to or associate with those who are very unlike you.
Right.
So, press the easy button. What's the easy
It's
button?
natural. It's easy. I get
It's
that.
easy. And so it's a challenge. Well,
It's just I'm the guy that wants to ask questions.
I encourage
And
all
I've
the
turned into
listeners.
that.
I've encouraged all the listeners this week, do something that's not easy. Do something outside your comfort zone.
Yes.
Associate, talk with, seek somebody out. You see this in Hollywood movies all the time. You think it's like a trite Hollywood, device where you have the odd kid, the weird kid, the geek, the
Right.
nerd, sitting alone at lunch, and you have one of the cool kids come and sit down and talk with them. You can do that in your own life, but we do it not enough.
Yeah.
We don't because it's hard.
Well, yeah, it's the easy road to just
Yeah.
do what's comfortable and go to the places that are common. And it's if you want to grow and you want to strengthen yourself, you have to be uncomfortable a little bit.
So what's the
Just
hardest?
like working out.
What's the hardest part of that?
Being uncomfortable, or of
What's the hardest part of what you just described? I mean, I have an idea, but I'm asking you
the
first.
hardest part is getting outside your comfort zone. It's finding people or groups to join.
And I agree with that.
Does
But
that make sense?
once you get out, what's the hardest part? I would say listening.
Listening.
We as a society, I mean, we have so many.
Especially in that setting when you're an outsider.
We have so many avenues to speak now. Snap, Twitter, Instagram,
With no real rebuttal,
Twitch.
right? You can delete their comment if you want.
Exactly. You can limit comments back. You can drown out comments back.
You can turn them off.
You can. It's so easy now to speak. But what is really hard, or harder, I should say, is to listen. And I'm going to use the old people's social media, Facebook. I mean, it's so easy to mute the people you don't disagree with, and
Or
you
you
have to
don't
be
agree
careful
with.
of the Facebook algorithm. You keep liking the people who you agree with. Eventually, the Facebook algorithm is going to put you in the silo.
Yeah, oh yeah, you're gonna end up in the silo.
Right.
You're gonna end up in the Trump category, the Biden category, the Jesus category.
But I want to hear all the categories.
Me too.
And while on social media, I'm figuratively saying listen, because you're actually reading.
Right.
I want to listen and not just speak. And it's a lot harder literally to listen, and it's a lot harder figuratively to listen. But that's kind of, to me, the hardest part about getting outside of your comfort zone is listening
That's a good point.
to people who don't agree with you.
That's a really good point. And that's funny you say that, because I train a lot of people in sales, and I was the same when I was young. But that's the one thing I tell people when these younger guys, or I'm helping them, or I go on an appointment with them, or whatever. I say, the person talking the most is losing. Okay, in this situation,
Let me tell you about why you want insurance product A, B, C, D, and E.
don't put the script away, put the coverage sheet away, get to know the guy, let him talk about his family, let him talk about himself, and then you get to that. It might not even be
But Jeff, I don't care about that. I want to tell you about insurance product A, B, C, D, and E.
I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Right. Exactly.
This is about me.
Correct.
Right? And that's what it's hard for, right? Because we just want to talk, because we got to prove ourselves, and we got to convince somebody of something, and we got to. So it's kind of the same thing. You go into the room, you're not comfortable, so you've got to talk your way through it, and you got to prove yourself, and you got to pump yourself up, instead of sitting back and asking the different group or person questions about that, about their life, about what's going on, about the event you're at, about to get them flowing, which it's just not easy for most people that don't practice on a regular basis.
So I may have told you the story. If I have, I apologize. But the job I got right out of law school, partner came to the law school where I was going, and I had a 30-minute interview.
It's a long interview.
It's a long interview, right? 30 damn minutes.
Yeah.
And I'll skip to the end. It's like The Hangover. I'm going to skip to the end and then go back.
Right.
Skip to the end. That partner who interviewed me said it was one of the best interviews he ever had. I was one of his absolute best, and I ended up getting a job offer and went to work here in West Virginia. Skip back to the interview. One of his absolute best interviews, and why I was one of the best interviewees, of that 30 minutes, I talked for maybe 2 of them. I was very conscious at the time. This guy is talking a lot, and I am doing a lot of.
Weird? Did that make you feel nervous at your age? Like that you should I be getting some more in? Should I be talking some more?
I was conscious of it. I'm not sure if I was conscious enough to know it was weird, but I was conscious enough to go in, I'm not saying a lot here.
He must like talking to me.
I'm agreeing with him a bunch. But my agreement was like, yeah. Oh, yeah. And he talked for 28 minutes. I talked for 2. It was one of his best interviews, which was a great early lesson for me in exactly what you're talking about, which is sometimes the best thing you can do is just listen.
Yeah.
And he was going off about litigation. He could understand litigation. They're crazy and it's stressful. And he had a war story or 2. He was not a litigator. And he knew that's what I wanted to do. And he thought I was crazy. And gosh, let me tell you what you're going to get into. And I'm like, yeah. Boom. I got a job offer out of it.
It's incredible.
But that's a great...
listen.
But that was a great early example for me on the importance of listening. You can be super effective not talking. You can be super effective just listening.
For me, I look a lot smarter when I don't talk, so that helps a lot.
Because when you do talk, you can tailor it to what the person you're talking to
That's right.
wants, thinks, believes, is thinking, leaning towards, whatever. Not just in the business sense, but in the personal sense too.
And I'll say this, then we'll close. And we'll do it again soon. But when I say that I've trained people and I help people, and I don't want to sound like I've got it all together, because I'm a much better coach than I was a player. Like I'm a much better like I can see everything as a coach. As a player and I'm in the game, I wasn't always as good, and I might have talked too much, but it's all those failures, like you said, right? Those early failures of screwing it up and having mentors or people that would be like, I remember my guy in Atlanta when I really learned at a big firm, going out on these appointments, and he would go with me because they had a philosophy where you never go out alone. You take a benefit. If I'm a PNC guy, I always take a benefits guy with me. You always have a guy with you, and you critique each other the ride back because it always took forever because you're in Atlanta traffic. And whenever he went to me, he was very blunt, and he said, that guy tried to give you some answers, but you wouldn't shut your damn mouth. You know what I mean? And I go, what are you talking about? And because we were friends too. I go, what are you talking about? He was great. It went great. He's like, we'll see if it went great. But there were some things that I could tell, and this guy's 10 years older than me. He's done it a lot longer. He's failed more than me. So at that point, and he was right most of the time. And it helped me so much to mess those appointments up. And I thought I was doing good. If I would have been alone, I would have maybe kept doing it.
Jeff, literally last week, I took a paralegal along for an interview of a client, very important preparation for a deposition. I took a paralegal along. And on the car ride home, this preparation took 6 hours. It was important.
Right.
And that's why I took the paralegal in the first place, because it was important. And on the way back, I said, so tell me what you think. How'd that go? How'd I do? Do you think I covered everything? Do you think I emphasized it? Do you think I handled these certain situations right? Because it necessitated some nuance in prepping a guy and pressing the witness. And she said, how long have you been doing this? I said, I've been doing it a long time. Why? She goes, you don't need me to tell you. I'm like, no, that's the wrong answer. It's because I've been doing it for so long. You need to give me an honest assessment. Because if I ever become too set in my ways, or complacent, or think that I know how to handle something, it's time for me to move on. And I'm not going to be as good. So I need you to be honest with me and give me your assessment. That's the only way I'll, 1, continue to get better, and 2, not decline.
Right.
And she was looking at me like, what? I'm like, no, I need your honest assessment. How'd I do? So
that's
it's the
huge.
same thing. It's
that's
the same
huge.
thing. Yeah.
The best always are trying to get better.
Absolutely.
In sports, in life, and when you get too complacent, you die. We did talk about that last night.
There is a reason why LeBron James is the last one in the gym.
That's right. You're right.
Yep.
First in, first out.
Yep.
Well, thanks. We're gonna do it again soon, right?
Absolutely.
Get some more bourbon.